Brisbane's infamous poo jogger has reportedly been identified as corporate high flyer Andrew McIntosh. He was arrested after residents at a Greenslopes unit block camped out with a camera to catch the person who was leaving unwanted deposits.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to mediawatch. And the bizarre case of the Brisbane man who'd been repeatedly taking a dump outside an apartment block had journalists everywhere doubling over with excitement.
This is the greatest story in Australia at the moment. He'd been doing this for months. Residents have been trying to catch him for months. He'd been called the jogger bogger. It's the best story ever, isn't it?
64-year-old McIntosh was caught on camera in a sting by residents who claimed he'd left a deposit up to 30 times outside their building. And, dropping the story on Thursday, the Courier Mail was the first of many to pull out the puns.
Just poo it!
High-flying exec exposed over cheeky morning dump run.
Following up the next day with a two-page spread on how residents had got to the bottom of it all.
Busted by the pooparazzi.
Over on 7 News in Brisbane, resident Steve was also giving us the backstory to the elaborate sting while keeping his identity hidden.
It took a couple of weeks of being out each morning waiting.
Finally snapping a clean image.
That particular morning, I saw him run up the path. He was 3 minutes late.
His reaction?
He just said, hello.
Meanwhile, the so-called poo jogger, who's now been fined, humiliated and lost his job, was making headlines around the world. In The Sun, The New York Post, which reported McIntosh had relieved himself of his duties, and The Washington Post, which noted his actions reeked of premeditation. And before long, he was the butt of many well-crafted TV gags as well.
Apparently he just did it for shits and giggles.
That's his new Tinder profile.
But not everyone was comfortable with the ridicule.
It's a legitimate story, and I'm actually really disturbed by this story.
Why?
Because I think, is there a mental health issue? Is there a fetish? Why do you feel you need to do this?
The Studio 10 team was also concerned and chose not to identify the poo jogger at all.
His life is essentially ruined now. Does that punishment fit the crime? That humiliation, that stink will follow him for the rest of his life.
But in the end, even they couldn't resist a poo joke.
Where does he go from here, though?
To the toilet.
So, does the poor man have a right to privacy? I don't think so, given that he could so easily have done what others do and dropped his dax at home. But now, to our friends at the Daily Mail and their salacious reporting of celebrity suicide, which breaks every rule in the book. And first, an example of how it should be done. Here's 7 News on last week's death of designer Kate Spade.
She built a fashion empire based on plenty of colour, her signature handbags carried on the arms of millions of women. But behind the global success, Kate Spade was battling a dark struggle. Her body was found in her New York apartment early this morning with a note left behind for her daughter.
In the fashion capital Kate Spade called home, the fashion world learned it had lost one of its brightest.
There was a suicide note left at the scene. I'm not going to get into the contents of that note, but that appears to be the sum total of what it is at this point.
7 was careful, sensitive and did not reveal too much. Here, by contrast, is the Daily Mail, which showed no mercy on Spade's family and gave us all the grisly details of how the deed was done.
American fashion designer Kate Spade, 55, hangs herself in her Manhattan home, while her husband was in another room, after leaving a suicide note telling her daughter, 13, it was not her fault. Kate Spade, 55, hanged herself with a scarf.
And next day the Mail added that the note to the daughter reportedly said,
"This has nothing to do with you. Don't feel guilty. Ask Daddy."
Implying that the death was the husband's fault because, as the Mail told us, he was seeking a divorce. Stories of Spade's death were all over the Mail's website, plus footage of her body being removed from the scene, with the Mail telling its readers, watch the full video and don't miss the story. And just in case anyone did, the Mail gave us at least 20 chances, including a comparison with other celebrities who'd used the same method, and which in the rest of our coverage we are not going to repeat.
Spade, a mother of one, was found in the bedroom of her Park Avenue apartment, not long after 10 a.m. Meanwhile, Scott was also found in her Chelsea home back in March 2014.
So, apart from poor taste and a shocking disregard for the family, why is this all a problem? Well, according to Mark Bryant of Mindframe,
evidence clearly demonstrates that there is a direct link with irresponsible media reports and further suicide deaths. Over 100 studies have shown a direct link to copycat behaviour.
Mindframe is a government initiative to encourage responsible reporting of suicide and mental illness, and its guidelines to the media suggest,
where possible, consider minimising the prominence of a story.
The Mail certainly broke that one, and here is another.
Avoid using the word suicide in a headline and key search terms, as these can attract vulnerable people.
The Mail broke that one too. The media are also strongly advised not to disclose the method because
reporting explicit detail about method has been linked to increases in both use of that method and overall suicide rates.
So that's 3 out of 3 for the Mail so far. And final advice, don't publish the contents of suicide notes because
disclosing explicit content from a suicide note may impact on vulnerable people, including those bereaved.
All in all, the Mail's reporting is a textbook example of what not to do. And mental health expert Professor Ian Hickey was not impressed.
It's very distressing that this sad personal event has been exploited by this media outlet. It's entirely unnecessary to have coverage of such depth and sensationalism, and it has the capacity to do further harm.
The Daily Mail was not the only one in Australia to breach the guidelines. Sky News, Brisbane's 4BC, the Daily Telegraph and The Australian also revealed how Spade took her life. But what makes the Mail so much worse is it's a repeat offender, doing much the same last month with young Swedish DJ Avicii.
Avicii died after cutting himself using while his family alluded to suicide in open letters, saying he wanted peace.
And earlier this year, the Mail went even further with Glee star Mark Salling.
Actor who pleaded guilty to child pornography charges has by his home in Los Angeles,
which came with a map and photos of the spot where Salling killed himself. Luckily, most of the Australian media do abide by the guidelines because breaking them can have life or death consequences. But if the Mail continues to ignore them, it's a fair bet others will follow. So, how should the Mail do it? Here's some heartfelt advice from Professor Ian Hickey.
Report what the family has to say. Celebrate that person's life. Really, what do the rest of us need to know more than that? It's exactly what we do with road trauma and public health issues.
So, is the Mail listening? Sadly not. On Friday, we confronted the Mail with those criticisms. Hours later came news that celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain had killed himself in France. And yet again, the Mail went to town with multiple stories revealing the method and all the gory details. We've said it before, we'll say it again. The Daily Mail is a disgrace to journalism. But now, to the Today Show, which set off last week on a health crusade.
This morning we are launching a very special Today Show investigation into our national obsession with sugar.
It is quite that. Over the next few days, we'll reveal the marketing tricks and the hidden additives that have made us a nation of sweet tooth.
Sugar is certainly a great topic to investigate, and Today did a fine job revealing the shocking facts about how fat Australians now are.
A staggering 2/3 of us are overweight or obese, and sugar is largely to blame.
The extraordinary amounts of hidden sugar in our food.
And something like this, there's 23 teaspoons in that bottle, and there's about 25 teaspoons in that.
Plus the effect it's now having on our health.
Australia is in the grip of a diabetes epidemic.
There could be another 500,000 people with type 2 diabetes who haven't been diagnosed yet.
And the vexed issue of a sugar tax, where Karl Stefanovic was surprisingly supportive.
We have to look at it. We have to look at it, especially these sugary drinks. A tax on those, that needs to happen.
It was just the sort of public interest journalism we'd love to see more of on breakfast TV. But, as the Today team was quick to point out, they are not martyrs for the cause.
We're not wowsers here on the Today Show. We love climbing into a sweet, and I love a fizzy drink every now and then. And
I love chocolate. I have chocolate most days.
And sugar fans, they certainly are, as anyone who watches Today would know, because Carl, Georgie, Ben and the rest of the team are forever spruiking sweets on the show.
Honeycomb Rocky Road. There is another 28k run in there for me today. Right there,
really
one
good
little package.
Yes, there's no sweeter tooth on television than Today. Whether it's chocolate blocks...
So death by chocolate this morning.
Oh, what a way to go.
Chocolate biscuits.
Alas, the Tim Tam Genie is back and we have an amazing campaign, something that Australia's going to be very excited about.
Or ice cream.
Arnott's Biscuits and Peter's Ice Cream have joined forces in one of the greatest creations in the history and collaborations in the history of Australian society.
And let's not forget those other junk food snacks. In fact, even as Nine warned us about our intake last week, today was chowing down at Macca's.
Got 24 nuggets for $10. I mean, what better value is there?
Do you count them as you go?
I don't.
Best not
I don't
to,
like to
really.
be reminded of my decadence.
So, is Nine's new health crusade for real? And will we see fewer sugar-filled segments in the future? And what will the advertisers say if we do? A network spokesperson told MediaWatch bluntly,
"We are a commercial media company and we work proudly with our sponsors and partners. Our news and current affairs content, including that within the Today Show, is editorially independent."
But we suspect Today might find that kicking its sugar habit is easier said than done. We noticed it was careful to black out brand names as it shamed those sugar-packed products on the show last week. And we suspect the health of Nine's share price is more important to the network than that of its viewers, which makes today's week of swearing off sugar an even more noble endeavour. And finally, to an act of rebellion in country New South Wales, where this turned up last week on Facebook, offering up-to-date stories from Wagga Wagga's Daily Advertiser, like a lengthy dry spell in the Riverina and a man jailed for intimidating his grandparents. But this Facebook site is not run by the real local paper. It's just ripping off the Daily Advertiser stories. And here is why it's happening.
Wagga's Daily Advertiser is facing backlash over their decision to charge readers to read its articles online.
Yes, Fairfax put up a paywall at its Wagga paper last Monday, as it's already done with other local titles like the Junee Southern Cross, the Area News in Griffith, the Harden Murrumbara Express, the Irrigator in Leeton, and the Cootamundra Herald. And some readers aren't thrilled.
We could discuss it if we could read the article.
May as well unfollow this page as I can't read any of the stories anymore.
Prime Local News has also given the Daily Advertiser's new paywall a whack.
There are calls to make stories in the public interest free online.
This is about the local paper that's been an institution in Wagga, making sure that people can still continue to be informed.
Now, some might think the Advertiser is a bargain, only $3.75 a week for the website, plus digital copies of the paper 6 days a week from Monday to Saturday. But one saboteur decided to sign up and then republish stories on Facebook for free, adding,
"If everyone can tag the page in all new posts by the Daily Advertiser, Daily Advertiser Sport, I'll be able to share the articles quicker. Keep mentioning and tagging the page."
Not surprisingly, the editor of the Daily Advertiser has been in touch.
Good evening. You are posting content on this page that is the property of Fairfax Media. As you do not have the right to copy, redistribute, retransmit or publish this content, we ask that you remove it immediately.
But the page, which now has around 1,200 followers, is still live on Facebook. And while posted stories are being removed, a closed group, Wagga News Stories, has been created in an attempt to maintain the flow. We think that is mean and short-sighted, and at least one Wagga local agrees.
Get used to it. All the major papers have or will get paywalls. Some will give limited free access, others will not. It's just a fact of modern life. You have to pay for what you get.
And if you don't pay, local papers like that may well go out of business. And there's more about tonight's stories on our Facebook page or our website, where you can get a transcript and download the programme. You can also catch up with us on iView and contact me or MediaWatch on Twitter. And don't forget, Media Bites every Thursday. Q&A is up next, but for now, until next week, that's it from us. Goodbye.
For more information and support on issues raised in this program, contact the following services.